Welcome back everyone once again to my channel, Kytto Explained. And guys, thank you so much to all of you for showing such wholehearted support in the last part. And please keep showing that same love to this channel. And today, in this video, you're going to see how in the middle of Yuhao and Tian's fight, the Sun Moon Empire itself turns against Beast God and makes its full attempt to hunt him down and kill him. And right then, Zhongli Wu wounds Tian with one of his dangerous spears and does everything in his power to take his life. And in this very episode, Yuhao begins understanding a completely new world with his brand new strength. And now the question is whether Yuhao will truly go inside the Sun Moon Empire camp and what his meeting with Zhuji there will be like. And you'll see all of this in today's. But before we move forward in this video, let's do a quick recap of what happened in the last part. In the last part, just as Elder Huan Lao was about to defeat Tian with the power of his Tauri bloodline, right then Tian borrows power from Silver Dragon King Gu Yuena and ends up suppressing Elder Huan Lao instead. But right at that moment, a level 90 Yuhao makes his entry, and the moment he arrives, he nullifies several of Tian's massive attacks and slowly starts leading him toward the Sun Moon Empire camp. And now moving forward in this episode, when the dark blue hurricanes formed from the clash between Yuhao and Tian started spreading and devastating their tents, every soul engineer there starts pouring soul power into their tools like crazy, because they knew that if those hurricanes got inside, it would be nearly impossible for anyone to survive. And friends, let me tell you that Yuhao himself couldn't even move for more than 10 seconds. His body was trembling a little, but he slowly manages to steady himself, and when he looks up at Tian in the sky, a faint trace of fear shows in his eye. And friends, let me tell you that after this new breakthrough, Yuhao himself realizes that his soul power is now far beyond that of a newly made titled douluo, perhaps around rank 97 or 98. And the most special thing was that his ultimate ice and spiritual power had now completely merged into each other, and he becomes certain that he is now stronger than any normal transcendent douluo. And on top of that, he also had the most powerful human-shaped soul tool in the world, which was the icy war god's arm. But honestly, friends, Yuhao was still nowhere close to Tian's level. After which, Yuhao, while catching his breath, keeps staring at Tian and slowly raises his morning dew dagger and starts sending his soul power into it, and then pulls that power back into his own body. And friends, let me tell you that this time he didn't have the help of his spirits. Yet this dagger alone was standing by his side, and honestly today, for the very first time, he realized that if it weren't for this dagger and this armor, even 70% of that attack might have taken his life. After which, a thunderous explosion echoes in the sky, and two of the Sun Moon Empire's linked defensive barriers shatter at the same time, and everything inside them gets engulfed by those dark blue hurricanes. And friends, let me tell you here that each soul tool deployment area had approximately 50,000 soldiers, along with many precious soul tools and soul engineers. Fortunately, the remaining barriers somehow hold on, and the surviving hurricanes slowly calm down, after which Yuhao is a little surprised, wondering why Tian hasn't attacked him again. And right then, a mysterious dark red power is released from inside the camp, which looks very thin but extremely long, and it rises and stops right above the two destroyed areas, and then countless vengeful spirits filled with rage and fear get pulled into it, and before anyone knows it, that light takes the shape of a terrifying spear, and even Tian is a little surprised seeing this. After which, Yuhao also understands through his spiritual power that the spear was made specifically for Tian. And right at that exact moment, Zhuji, hidden in the middle of the camp, gives an order in a cold voice that the Fire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion gets ready and fires with full strength and concentrates all firepower directly on Tian. And the moment this is heard, one beam of light after another rises from the camp, heading straight toward Tian. And seeing this unfold, everyone from Shrek Academy is left stunned because nobody had expected the Sun Moon Empire to attack Tian itself. It was like someone was inviting their own death. But friends, let me share a very important secret here that very few people could have understood. In reality, Zhuji had wanted from the very beginning that Zhongli Wu and later her own legions attack Tian. And there was only one reason for this, which was that she wanted to help Yuhao. And friends, let me tell you that Zhuji never had any intention of truly attacking Shrek Academy, because ever since Yuhao had brought her son back to her, the feeling of revenge was no longer the most important thing in her life. And in her world, only two people were truly the most important. One was her son Shu Yunhan, and the other was Yuhao himself. Which is exactly why the moment she saw Tian striking at Yuhao with his sword, her heart felt like it had stopped. And in this emotional moment, she gave the order without any hesitation for her army to attack Tian. After which, honestly, nobody standing there could understand her real reason. because nobody would have imagined that a commander could make military decisions based on her personal feelings. And friends, the funny thing is that her order came at such perfect timing that everyone thought she was executing a combined plan together with Zhongli Wu, which is why nobody questioned her decision at all. After which, Tian angrily swings his huge hand in the air, and a pointed scale of black light forms in front of him, trying to stop those linked offensive soul tools beams. But this only works for a few moments. And friends, let me tell you that Tian is left completely stunned, and then he instant teleports to escape, because those beams' power was far beyond what he had estimated, and he starts thinking how humans could possibly build such powerful soul tools, because the soul tools he had seen during the previous beast wave were nothing compared to these. And he also realizes that if weapons like these exist, then his great Stardew Forest could be in danger at any time. After which Yuhao takes full advantage of this moment, and instead of attacking, he runs straight out of there and in just one instant vanishes into the air and slips outside the boundary of the Sun Moon Empire camp. And, at the same time, signals the rest of the Shrek Academy people through his spiritual detection sharing to head back toward the city. And friends, let me tell you that for him, this was a massive victory, because with Tian's help, he had just destroyed 2 entire soul tool deployment areas with barely any effort, meaning approximately 1/10 of the Sun Moon Empire's entire army was now finished. After which, Tian keeps flickering back and forth in the air, dodging those soul tool attacks, and angrily raises his dark dragon sword. And right then, a terrifying scream echoes through the sky, and a flash of dark red light appears, and the moment that light disappears, the entire sky turns red like blood. And the moment Tian tries to tear through space and escape, he discovers to his shock that the space all around him has already been sealed, and he can no longer even flicker freely. After which, in that exact moment, those soul tools attack him again. But still, Tian was Tian, and he quickly swings his sword horizontally and absorbs 2/3 of the attacks, while the remaining 1/3 lands on his body. And behind him, that black sun and purple moon appear again, and a golden glow blazes in his eyes from rage, meaning Beast God was now truly completely furious. But right then, at that exact same moment, without any warning, a dark red spear drives straight into his chest. And friends, let me tell you here that this spear was such a terrifying shade of red that it looked like blood would actually drip from it. And the scariest part was that before the spear hit him, a blood sea had completely surrounded Tian, so he couldn't even move. And Tian immediately understands that this is what had sealed his space. But by then it was too late, and the spear had completely caught him off guard. And on top of that, he was already dealing with those soul tool attacks. But Tian's body was stronger than any rare metal. Yet, still, a pained scream escapes him from that strike, and he cuts that spear in half with his sword. But its tip stays lodged inside his body, and thousands of vengeful spirits' screams start echoing through the sky, and that blood sea tries to swallow him whole. And by this point, those linked offensive soul tools also stop because they couldn't fire continuously for this long, or they would overheat themselves. But their work was already done, and the real damage had been caused by that red. After which, Tian, trembling with rage, swings his dark dragon sword downward directly toward the Sun Moon Empire camp. And with a dragon's roar, that blood sea explodes completely, and another soul tool deployment area's defensive barrier shatters, and a purple-black sword light drives straight into a tent, but a blood-like light from that very tent comes out and counters that strike. And friends, let me tell you here that inside that tent, 12 evil soul masters were sitting cross-legged, 4 of them vomit blood at that very moment, and even Zhongli Wu's own face turns pale. After which, Tian's roar is heard up to 50 kilometers away, and he tears through that blood sea again with his sword. And even though he knew space was sealed, he still slips into a crack and disappears. And that blood sea searches for him restlessly, but finally, unable to find him, scatters apart on its own. After which Zhongli Wu says with dissatisfaction, "How did he just run away like that?" And then says, "But still, that spear must have badly injured him. So everyone come with me toward the great Stardew Forest to find him." After which, friends, let me tell you that even the combined strength of 12 evil soul masters alone wasn't enough to defeat Tian. But they had poured not just their own strength, but also the vengeance of thousands of vengeful spirits into that red spear, which allowed it to seal space and land a heavy strike. And even though that spear couldn't pass through Tian's body, it had still lodged a part of itself inside him, releasing that terrifying vengeance, which would now wreak havoc inside his body. And this is exactly why Zhongli Wu was in such a rush to go find him. Because if they could truly kill Tian, The Holy Ghost Church would become the most powerful force in the world, and he himself would become the most powerful person alive. After which, seeing all of this, Yuhao, Elder Huan, and everyone else finally breathes a sigh of relief, because Beast God had finally left, and perhaps for some time he wouldn't be a threat to Yuhao. But the moment Yuhao raises his visor, Elder Huan sees that his face has turned completely pale, and right then a stream of blood comes out of Yuhao's mouth and his body starts swaying back and forth, and only because of Elder Huan's support does he manage to avoid falling. After which, Elder Huan says they'll talk later and heads to the city first, and then both their figures disappear from there as Yan Xiaojie and everyone else follows behind them. After which, friends, this entire fight had been like a near-death experience for everyone. And on top of that, they had also seen the true strength of the Sun Moon Empire, and even Tian himself had to escape from those linked offensive soul tools at full power. And on top of that, the Holy Ghost Church could wound and push back Beast God himself, which is why those who had been wanting to celebrate Yuhao's success fall completely silent in the face of this demoralizing truth. After which, Elder Huan takes Yuhao straight to Sea God's pavilion, and upon reaching the golden tree, Yuhao kneels before it just like before and prays, and says, "Teacher, thank you for helping me, and I finally made the breakthrough and completed my second soul core. Please trust that I will give everything I have to save Shrek City and stop the Sun Moon Empire from destroying it." After which, friends, a very emotional moment comes here because Elder Huan, who was standing beside him, turns his face away because he knew that Elder Mu would never be able to hear Yuhao's voice again, but he couldn't find the courage to tell him this truth. After which, both of them return to Sea God's pavilion, and Elder Huan asks how he's feeling now. And friends, let me tell you here that even though both of them had 2 soul cores, Yuhao's cultivation method was so different that Elder Huan couldn't even read his body's condition using his own soul power. After which, Yuhao says he's fine, just a little shaken after taking Beast God's strike, but his regenerative ability has grown far beyond what it was before, so he'll recover quickly. After which, Elder Huan smiles and congratulates him, and says that now he could become the Academy's #1 Soul Master, and might even be able to challenge Beast God. And he also mentioned that he had just seen some evil Soul Masters heading toward the great star Du Forest, meaning Tian must have definitely suffered a serious injury. So to this, Yuhao, with a slightly mischievous smile, says those evil Soul Masters have no idea who they've gone after. Even thinking about hunting Beast God is pure madness. After which, Elder Huan says that the great star Du Forest doesn't only have Tian, but also very powerful soul beasts like Emerald Swan, Bear Lord, and Myriad Demon King. And perhaps those evil soul masters won't be able to handle them. But Yuhao shakes his head and says he doesn't think Emerald Swan or anyone else would be able to stand against those evil soul masters, because the power they had used was actually the souls of those soldiers who died in the spillover of his and Tian's fight, meaning their combined power had become equal to several transcendent douluo. But still, they're overestimating how much damage Beast God actually took. After which, Elder Huan asks in surprise whether that attack wasn't as serious as it seemed. So Yuhao explains that yes, that attack was very powerful, and the rage of thousands of souls was packed into it. But the important thing is that Tian also has yin-yang equilibrium soul cores. So giving him a truly serious injury is extremely difficult. And right on this, Elder Huan quickly asks what exactly is so special about these yin-yang equilibrium soul cores. After which, Yuhao explains that when these 2 soul cores are formed, their power fuses with each other, meaning after clashing that power reorganizes, purifies, and compresses in a new way, which causes his soul power to take on the characteristics of both spiritual power and ultimate ice. And this new power takes on a whirlpool-like shape, which is very destructive, and at the same time keeps his soul power in its most compact form. And he has also realized that after the breakthrough, his total soul power volume has grown 3 times larger than before, and his fighting power has grown up to 5 times. After which, Yuhao further explains that this new power is very resistant against any external energy or attack. So even though that spear's vengeance was very intense, he's still confident that Tian's years-old yin-yang soul power will completely dissolve it. And since his body is of the dark type, even though he was injured, it won't be as serious as the evil soul masters think. And he also jokes a little saying, just look at the nerve of those evil soul masters. They're actually going into Beast God's own home to challenge him. Hearing this, Elder Huan also takes a deep breath and says, truly fighting Beast, God is something beyond anyone's ability. After which, Elder Huan says, you've explained quite enough. Now go treat your injuries, and I'll keep an eye on you. And says how he wished Wutong were here, and if both of them fought together, they could perhaps even give Tian a real challenge. So Yuhao, with a slightly strange smile, says that maybe his and Wutong's martial soul fusion might not be the same as before, because after the breakthrough, his soul power has completely changed, and it might not fuse the same way as before, but their martial soul fusion skills will still work. So if she's together with him, both of them can at least defend themselves. After which, Elder Elder Wan asks where that girl has gone and why Wutong isn't with him at such an important time. After which Yuhao tells the truth that he sent Wutong to the Dueling Empire so she could convince them not to send troops to Shrek City. Hearing this, Elder Huan doesn't get surprised, and then takes a deep breath and asks whether he knows what will happen if everyone finds out what he's done, after which Yuhao bows his head and says he knows clearly that this is a trap, and he doesn't want the Star Luo and Dueling Empires to get caught in it, but he also knows that his efforts might not change things because those empires won't let go of such an opportunity to defeat the Sun Moon Empire. And if they truly come to help, he's afraid that. After which Elder Wan explains that even though Wutong's point seemed right to some extent, the Academy still can't take such a big risk because there is no room for failure. Which is why in moments like these, the Academy has to prioritize its own security, and he also reminds him that what they witnessed today shows how powerful the Sun Moon Empire's army has become, and even Tian himself had to dodge some of their attacks, so how would they hold up in a direct fight? After which Yuhao nods and says he understands their helplessness, which is why he's only trying to make the situation better as much as he can from his own side, and that's exactly why he went into closed-door cultivation, so he could use his new strength to frighten the Sun Moon Empire to some degree, and he says that after recovering he wants to go to the Sun Moon Empire camp once, after which Elder Wan's eyes widen a little, but he immediately agrees and says, "All right, go." And in reality, there was also a good opportunity now because he knew there was something special between Yuhao and War God Empress, and now that the evil Soul Masters had left for the Great Stardew Forest, there was a good chance to go meet. After which Elder Huan personally takes Yuhao to his room and sends his people to inform the Tang sect that Yuhao is fine, after which Yuhao sits cross-legged and calmly recalls the entire fight. He realizes that Tian's strike was perhaps equal to his full power, and his darkness power alone wasn't that terrifying, but when it combined with his spatial power, it became practically unbeatable. After which both yin-yang equilibrium soul cores inside him start spinning, and small whirlpools of soul power start circulating through his passageways. And friends, let me tell you here that even though he had received some injuries, because of the icy war god's armor and the dragon pill's energy, they weren't too serious. His body had become far tougher than any ordinary human, and after just a few circulations, all his injuries disappear completely. After which Yuhao thinks that no matter how difficult it may be to form a second soul core using the yin-yang complement technique, the benefits are just as great. And friends, let me tell you here that even Yuhao himself couldn't fully measure how much his soul power had grown. But he was confident that now, even without Wutong, he could face powerful cultivators like Yan Shaojie in a one-on-one. And the biggest thing was that his regenerative ability was far beyond that of any normal titled douluo or transcendent douluo, because they only have one soul core while he had two, which were giving him both flexibility and duality. After which Yuhao also thinks about Tian's power, and friends, let me tell you here that Tian's soul power was also dual, but his dual nature was formed from the combination of his darkness power and spatial power. And the most interesting thing was that this spatial power wasn't actually his own. He had experimented with it for hundreds of thousands of years and fused it in place of his comparatively weaker spiritual power, meaning Tian had 3 types of powers inside him, but his actual spiritual power was weaker than the other 2. And from this, Yuhao realizes that he still has so much left to learn and explore, and forming a second soul core alone was like opening just one new door. After which, as night falls, Yuhao quietly gets up from his bed and stands on the ground, and his entire body starts glowing with a powerful aura, as if he himself is some massive dragon. And friends, let me tell you here that after completing his second soul core, Yuhao had officially entered the list of the most powerful cultivators in the world, after which Yuhao fully understands his body's entire situation, because right now his soul power was around rank 92. But his actual soul power volume was equal to that of a rank 97 transcendent douluo, and because of his twin martial souls, he wasn't behind even a rank 97 transcendent douluo. Yes, if he were to face again a very powerful cultivator like Long Xiaoyao, he might not be able to defeat him, but he was no longer as powerless as he used to be. After which, without activating any soul skill at all, he feels himself through his intent merging into the night sky, after which Yuhao comes out of Sea God's pavilion and flies high up into the sky and disappears from sight in just a few moments. And on the other side, Elder Wan, who is meditating in his room, opens his eyes and a warm-hearted smile comes across his face. And he says to himself that, "Elder Mu, I have found your successor for you." After which, the night sky was completely clear, perhaps because the terrifying fight of the day had blown away all the clouds and mist. And as he kept flying, he started feeling completely different sensations. After getting his second soul core, his cultivation level, his senses, his spiritual power, and even the way he saw the world had completely changed. After which Yuhao feels that if before his understanding of the world was only the tip of an iceberg, then now he could understand the entire universal laws hidden behind it. He feels as if in every situation he can control everything around him. And friends, let me tell you here that this feeling was so special that even Yuhao himself couldn't fully explain it. He only knew that even the smallest particles in the air could now change according to his intent. After which, the three-dimensional world he used to understand before now appeared to be breaking apart into different small pieces. And after getting his second soul core, he had also started getting a little understanding of the gaps between spaces and dimensions. And even though he was still very far from Tian's level, he was still confident that if he kept moving forward on this path one day, he too would be able to deeply understand spatial power, and he no longer needed separate soul power to fly either. The air itself had become like a part of his body, and his speed was fully controlled by intent alone. And with this, our episode for today ends right here. But in the next episode, we'll uncover a secret that you probably never would have imagined. The painful truth between Zhu Tianren and Zhu Ji, where Zhu Ji herself wants to finish her own husband, and the complicated feelings between Yuhao and Zhu Ji that can never be fully expressed in words. And now the question is whether Yuhao will listen to what Zhu Ji says, and whether the war will truly be postponed for the next 10 years. To find out, make sure you wait for the next episode. And do let me know how you like this part in the comments. And yes, get the 5,000 likes target done in this video. And until then, bye-bye, take care.